I'm Parker Cyza with the Rural Radio Network, and we are joined by University of Nebraska President Ted Carter. President Carter, it's great to have you in here. Thanks for joining us today. I know you're traveling across the state, so thanks for taking the time.
Parker, good morning. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. And you started this role as president back on January 1st, 2020. Lots happened since then, 2 months after the pandemic hit nationwide. Now that it's a little bit in the rearview mirror, we're a good start to the year so far, I'm sure, with the university. How has this university kind of been through this pandemic and been led through this pandemic?
Yeah, it's hard to believe we've been 2+ years of the pandemic. And as you pointed out, I came here and started on January 1st, 2020. And it was somewhere around April, May of that year when we all felt like we were at the height of the pandemic. It was a real thing. And we started working on a strategy at that time that would not only allow us to survive and operate and continue with our mission during the pandemic, we wanted to make sure that we came out of it in a position of strength. And I agree with you. We feel like we're on the backside of this thing. There's still, some remnants of it, obviously, but we are now in a position of strength. And we built this strategy on making sure that all of our programs were for the success of our students based on affordability, accessibility, and growth. When I say growth, I'm talking about growth and success in terms of retention and graduation rates.
Absolutely. And everybody is, looking at some other nationwide topics. Everybody's talking about inflation these days. It's no secret Nebraskans are paying more for just about everything. And the university has been able to buck that trend by freezing some tuition costs for every single University of Nebraska student for now 2 years in a row. How were you able to accomplish that?
Well, like all Nebraskans, we've had to take a look at our budget and think about how much money we were going to spend on things. And, we actually anticipated that we would go through an inflationary period. We didn't know it would be as big as it's been. So if you take a look at the actions that we took during the height of the pandemic, things like, changing, freezing tuition, changing the academic school year, making sure that our online offerings were at the same price tag as our in-person classes, and making sure that everybody knew that our in-person offerings were available. In the fall of 20, we were full open. We were one of the only campuses in the country that could say that. And then we just made sure that we reduced our spending. We actually cut our budget by over $45 million and self-imposed that across 3 years. So when you go back to it and you look at what the relative cost of tuition is and cost per credit hour in 2022 for adjusted for inflation, our cost is the same as it was in 2012. So our cost is ridiculously low and the highest value for our students right now. And that's all based on the things that we took action on.
Here in the month of October, it's that time of year. I remember when I was I went to the University of Nebraska. I remember it was around this time when I was a senior in high school. You're thinking about your next venture in life, your next university, college, and a lot of high school students are maybe looking at applying to different universities. And the University of Nebraska has has extended another free month of the application fee. It was supposed to expire last Friday. You extended it for another month. Why was that? And what's your message to high school students or transfer college students about the University of Nebraska?
I think there's so many opportunities out there for high school students, whether they want to go directly into the workforce, go to a private university, a community college, or the public university system like us. So we want to make sure that all of our students here in the state of Nebraska know that we are a viable option. We don't want to put any hurdles or roadblocks up for them to be thinking about us. The application is just one small element of that. The federal aid application window just opened up on October 1st. And of course, we have this program called Nebraska Promise, which is a free tuition program for Nebraskans whose adjusted gross income is $65,000 or less. And that applies to more than 50% of the entire state. So there's everything good about what's in the university system right now. And we're welcoming to everybody.
This is you've also called this year the year of the internship at the University of Nebraska. What's your vision for student internships, and why are internships so important for the workforce development?
Well, given this inflationary period, maybe on the doorsteps of recession, our unemployment rate in the state is actually quite low. We're one of the top 2 or 3 states in the nation, and historically have been. But given that there's over 50,000 job openings throughout the state, particularly in the tech industry, IT industry, medical professionals, teaching, we want to make sure that what we're doing in our mission is to create pathways for not only our undergraduate and our graduate programs, but into the workforce. And the best way to do that is to connect the employees and the future employees, our students, with that workforce. And that's the internship. And not only do we want to see internships become more out there, more viable, we want them to be for the large, the medium, the small size companies. There's some state money that's now available to help with that, and make those paid internships. That's the key word, paid internships. And that's the key for students to say, hey, this is a profession I'd really like to get into.
So, President Ted Carter with us. In a few months, the legislature is coming back to session. They're going to be setting the state's budget and the university budget. What's your message to state senators as far, they're going to be making these decisions? What's your message to them about how the university will use state tax dollars?
Yeah, we work very closely with the 49 elected members of the unicameral. And I've said this from the day I've come here. I say that we won't spend any money except the money that we absolutely need to run the university. And I've been very clear with that. We asked for only a 2% budget increase over the last biennium. This biennium, we're coming in with a very modest 3% budget increase, which, given inflation and all the things that we've already done, is remarkable. We'll still be $12.5 million short per year, even given that small bump in our budget. And we get that taxpayers donate to the state to pay for things like roads and schools and property tax. So we know we have to have a real value for what we bring. And we think we do that. We return more than $9 for every dollar we get from the state. So we know we're a good investment from the state.
Speaking of the legislature, one of the projects they approved earlier this year was the investment of the new University of Nebraska Rural Health Complex located on the UNK campus. And those of us in rural Nebraska know that healthcare professionals are very important for our communities. What will this facility do in terms of meeting the workforce and healthcare needs in this part of the state?
We'll be one of the few states in the entire country that is actively trying to get after rural healthcare. 93 counties here in the state, more than half our counties do not have enough primary care physicians. There are not enough nurses, occupational and physical therapists there, and of course, mental health, which is a growing need across the state. We have a number of counties that don't have any of those medical professionals. So this is an attempt to get after that. Bring young Nebraskans to our rural healthcare facilities where we can teach them in a place like Kearney, let them go through their internship in rural Nebraska, and then stay there and work there.
I want to get into Husker athletics now. And I want to start with the football program because it's been a tumultuous month for Nebraska football, a long month, I'm sure as well. But what a win they had on Saturday against the Indiana Hoosiers. What's been your perspective of, everything that's gone on with Nebraska football, the change of the coach, interim head coach Mickey Joseph now, and your view of it here?
Well, first off, we got to give our hats off to the fans, the most remarkable fans in all of college athletics. We were sold out again for the Indiana game, sold out every game since 1962. I mean, where else could you be in the country with a team that's entering after they lost their storied head coach, the team's 1-3, going into their, a Big Ten rivalry game, and we're sold out again. And how exciting was it to see interim coach Mickey Joseph get a win? And so happy for our players, so happy for our fans. It was just well-deserved. A fourth quarter that we haven't seen in a long time. We held Indiana to like 5 yards rushing, and we won the second half. We won the fourth quarter. So a lot of excitement around the Husker fan base, and deservedly so.
Yeah, some big-time players had some great performances on Saturday too.
Absolutely.
At Friday's Regent board meeting, which there was a very full agenda there, you approved the first step of the process for renovating Memorial Stadium. And Director of Athletics and Vice Chancellor Trev Alberts talked a little bit about this on his radio shows, how looking at like South Stadium. What can you tell to the fans about maybe some future impacts on Memorial Stadium and that?
Well, because we have the greatest fans in the world, we have to also think about our facilities. And we have one of the most iconic athletic facilities, not only in the state of Nebraska, but arguably in the entire United States. Memorial Stadium is going to be 100 years old next year. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about what Memorial Stadium is going to be like to serve our fans for the next 50, 100 years. And that means that we're going to have to do some upgrades. The stadium's been through a number of upgrades over its lifetime. We have seats for 90,000. A lot of those seats don't have backs. It's hard to get in and out of the stadium. The concessions could look at some upgrades. So we're looking across the board, But what we asked for from the regents is to look at the planning process. And that was the waiver request that we asked for so that we can actually start working on the plan to make the plan. And it's going to take us a year to do that. So when the stadium turns 100 years old next year, we'll have just finished the Go Big project. And that project will also be historic because it will be one of the greatest additions to any facility in the country supporting our student athletes. So it's going to attract more student athletes, retain them. And now we start thinking about what are we going to do for our fans? And we'll be ready to roll that plan out in about a year when we can see what the philanthropic opportunities are going to be out there. We're not going to put any of the costs of this on the taxpayers. We want to do this through the fundraising efforts here in the state, maybe some internal lending programs on a smaller scale. And we're going to have to do this over the course of 2 or 3 years while we're playing football and include the off season. So as I've kind of said, this is repairing and upgrading the airplane while we're still flying it.
Yep, absolutely. So Memorial Stadium looking at getting some renovations and the Go Big project that's going on right now. There's also some plans in place. You're in the middle of a $400 million maintenance work on the University of Nebraska. Things like new roofs, HVAC systems, repair of old buildings. What's about that, and how does that benefit students?
So what's amazing about this, at the height of COVID, we were able to work with the legislature to think not only in the next 5 or 10 years, but think over the next 40 years for how we're going to sustain our 900 buildings. The university system owns 900 buildings, and those are the academic buildings. Those are not sports facilities or dorms. How are we going to sustain those? All these structures were built in the 60s and 70s. Some of them are really aging, and this is a problem across all campuses across the country. We are one of the only university systems in the country that have a plan. And when we were able to work this, we immediately got after this $800 million backlog in maintenance, things like roofs, HVACs, windows, with a $400 million bond at historically low interest rates. So good timing. We can talk about whether we were lucky or not, but we got it done. So now we are investing that $400 million into maintenance projects. To give you an example, at UNL alone today, between private funding and LB 384 money, that some of this $400 million bond, we have $1 billion in maintenance efforts going on just today, right now.
It's pretty incredible.
It is amazing.
You're traveling across the state this week, all the way to Scottsbluff, back east. Could you share a little bit about this agenda and I guess what's important about traveling across this great state of Nebraska?
Yeah, the goal of this trip is to make sure that we have a chance to reach out, listen to prospective students, families, our fans, the workforce of Nebraska. We have a reach across the entire state and even outside of our borders. But there's no substitute for being there. So I want to make sure that I put myself physically in all the towns here, west of Lincoln. Obviously, being in here in York today, we're making our way across the state and really excited about that. I love getting on the road and seeing people.
We'll wish you the best of luck in your travels and everything going forward. A fall break coming up very shortly for the students. And just like that, the semester is going to be over, the school year going along. And thank you for taking the time today, President Carter.
It's great to be with you. And I wish all of our farmers are out there that are working harvest all the best this fall.